Hey, I wonder if I'm the only one that's noticed this. Not noticed this. I mean, anyway, if what this is all about, I'm going to get it taken off in about 45 minutes. I'm going to go in and get this thing taken off my face. But if you go to some of the prior postings, you'll know what it's all about. But what I mean by noticing this is, uh, I've been noticing that this hatred for our president, and then I'm putting that up against Moses and Pharaoh for the way it's coinciding. Uh, as you remember, that Moses came up to Pharaoh to let his people go, and he started hitting them with plagues to let them go. You know, Moses come up there and let my people go, and the Pharaoh says no. And so then the first plague was the everything turned to blood. All the water turned to blood, and so all the people go running to Pharaoh. Let him go, let him go. But I like the way J. Vernon McGee, Harry says harden his heart, but he put it this way. Here's Pharaoh, and here's who he is. This is his personality, everything that makes him up to be what he is and who he is. God used that to tie him up, forced him to be who he is. Now, he doesn't want to let the people go, but all his subjects are coming to him. Let these guys out of here. We're tired of this water being blood. Okay, let him go. But then he's tied up. No, you can't go. And then it's plague after plague, and and the people, hey, we can't stand this, all the frogs and stuff in our bed, all the different plagues, they were all aimed against the gods of Egypt. But anyway, but Pharaoh's always being tied up and won't let him go. And then the last plague comes along, where the death angel is going to cross over. That's when the Israelites started their Passover thing. They put the blood on the doorpost that the death angel would pass over them. But in Pharaoh's house, his son died, and then he can't take it now. Okay, get your people and get out of here. And so Moses and the 2 to 4 million, however many they were, I think it was around 4 million, I can't remember. Anyway, they head off, and then here's Pharaoh, and all of a sudden he's tied up again. He's forced to be who he is. No, we're not going to look at all that labor we just lost. All them laborers, free labor. Go get them. And so Pharaoh jumps in a chariot with the rest of them. They're going to go get him. And you know the story. They're up against the sea, and here's Pharaoh and his massed army coming to get him. And the Red Sea parts, and the Israelites go through, and the Egyptians, they did it, we'll do it. And they go through, and the Red Sea collapses on them and swallows them up. And now think of this in today's last couple of years. Now, it isn't people who put presidents and anybody else in any kind of power. God is the sovereign God of this universe. Nothing happens that happens unless God allows it to happen. It's God who places this person in charge and that person in charge of this country and that country and whatever. And it's the sovereign God that put Trump into the White House. Now think of this. Moses, for 40 years, he was in the desert being trained up and ready to go get the Israelites out of Egypt. And for 40 years or so, here's Trump coming up, being trained up, away from politics, away from politicians, being trained up for God to place him in the White House. And it's just unprecedented at what's happened in the last 2 years. All of this hatred for Trump, these political oppositions, whether in news or whatever, all through this country, there's people that just hate Trump. And God has them tied up. I believe that God has all these people that are hating Trump and not wanting having anything to do with him. I believe that God, for some reason, has tied them up, forcing them to be who who they are. Now you would think that if something good Trump comes up with, that some of them would say, yeah, that's, but no, they're being tied up. They can't, it's just unheard of. I heard the other day that in the last 2 years there hasn't been one single pro-Trump article that comes out of the news or the media or from this person, that person, that except for one channel. All these people that are just hate Trump are all tied up in there. God has tied them up, and he won't allow them to be reasonable. You would think that this guy would be reasonable, that even if he's in the opposition party and Trump comes up with this, this is a great idea, we need this, but yet he's being tied up with this hatred of Trump so much that he won't go along with something good, or this woman won't go along with something good, or this religion won't go along with something good, or this party won't go along with something good because of the hatred. They're all tied up, and they're bound, and they're forced to be who they are, angry at Trump. And I wonder if it's going to correlate with like it was with Pharaoh and Moses. Say all of a sudden Moses comes up with something good, and they finally let their guard down and they let him do something good. But then they're tied up again and they go after him. And I wonder if it's a play on words, like here's the opposition against Trump, and then the opposition lets Pharaoh go, and he's up against the Red Sea, and then he comes back after him in the vengeance, and the Red Sea opens up and he goes through. Trump's allowed to do what he's wanted to do. And then the opposition, they come after him. And the Red Sea, I don't know if this is a play on words from the Bible, but and the Red Sea gobbles them up. Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be something?